Hello, today we're talking about the vertical stack and handler movement and how that works. So, obviously you have the two handlers. Typically the one and the two in the stack are both going to be capable handlers as well, with the back three being more of the cutter types. So, for this, what we're going to look at is just the front of the stack then. So, just looking at those four, what kind of movement can they produce? If everything downfield is cut off, or if the handler or if the defense is just so good that they're staying with your man step for step and you can't seem to get open. How can you exploit good movement to work the disc upfield anyway? So, assuming the disc starts in the center of the field, what you want to do here is understand the fact that every time you get a break throw off to another handler, one of the other handlers should recognize this and gain a couple extra yards by cutting breaks out as well. So if you've got really strong handlers, which you should, obviously an easy thing to gain yardage is just a high release backhand or a little IO out into this space here for the one to go get, and then the two can immediately cut out and get some extra yardage there. But if you want some kind of movement that's just going to be methodical, a weave, so to speak, which the defense can't shut down every aspect of, cannot, then what you'll probably want is the most logical steps to make are basically swing and strike. If you catch the strike, you've automatically gained yardage. Assuming you don't catch the strike, you're going to clear back into the stack. And what this player is going to do, who faked the upfield throw, is going to have to get the around break off back to the center for this player. So now these guys are out of the way. And this player is going to cut straight down. Not lose yardage, because this person's just going to put on an around throw that's going to go right back into this space right here. And as soon as that catch is made, this player is going to cut straight out sideways so that there's no pick. Because if you go upfield and there's a cutter right there, there's going to be a pick, right? So straight out sideways, because you still want to get the maximum yardage while guaranteeing that there's no pick. And we get a second break off. So one break always equals two breaks, and that's where you gain the yardage, is on the second break. Okay? So that'll gain you a good 10, 15 yards. What happens in the meantime? So the one who struck cleared. This player does not leave the guy who was one in the stack originally until he throws the second break. Because if he doesn't throw the second break off, he needs another handler out there with him still. Once he's thrown the second break off, this player is booking it so that he's out of the lane and out of the way, and he resets the front of the stack because that's just the simplest. Make sure there's no picks. And since he's presumably a strong handler, you want him at the front of the stack so he can get back into the handler movement as easily as possible. And the stack should, as a whole, push up the field. Whoever's at the front of the stack should always be aware of where the disc is and try to set the stack so that it's spaced well with where the handlers are and where the disc is, so that it doesn't interrupt any flow that the handlers have, gives them enough room to work, but is close enough so that the cutters understand where they need to be in relation to the disc. So now we've had the two break throws go off, and this guy has the disc, the stack has been reset, pushed up there, and this player that threw the second break is pushing up to the center, right? So now this guy has the disc. He's on the break side of the field. So it's probably a pretty flat mark, maybe a little bit shaded so that he doesn't get the around. This, at this point, is an easy throw. In terms of a cut, if this was a pure weave, this player would basically just go a couple yards past the thrower, this being the thrower. This player would just go a couple yards past the thrower if he had been pushing all the way from back here. And then stop, and this person would just hit a back shoulder throw, and he would just come back a couple yards, attack it, and have it right there. And that'd be pretty easy. Immediately, this player should push, because this guy's catching it back here, this defender's going to come down here, so this player should push across the field to try to catch it in power position. That's what you want to do as a handler at any time. You want to catch it in power position. So, because that's where you're going to get good looks off your hucks. So, he should push across the field. This player should recognize that that's happening. Maybe throw a fake break side just to get this mark to shift over a little bit so that he can torch his guy easier afterwards. So then he throws it. This player catches it after pushing over in this area. So now we're back to the beginning, right? So, boom. We now have a mark on here. It's probably shifted too far over. Guy who's chasing his guy. Guy who's catching it out here in power position. And the guy who just threw it is going to be wide open. So this guy just caught it. This guy's out of position to stop a huck. So now he's got it in power position. A huck doesn't go off. And if it doesn't go, and you don't need to wait if you're this guy for the huck to go off. As soon as you throw that throw, just strike. Torch your player. Boom. Try to get it in power position again. So that in the time you're running from here to here, if the huck goes off, you're not going to get hit. If the huck doesn't go off by the time you're from here to here, then he can easily dish it off for the strike, right? He'll see you coming, easy money. And this player will be chasing you and out of position, and you'll have it in power position again as the handler, which is what you want. You always want the handlers to be getting it in power position. Cannot stress that enough. In the meantime, let's say that doesn't work, though. Let's say this guy got on his horse, the defender, caught up, or the mark shaded over for just a second, or whatnot. You clear, back out of the way into the stack. And so now, y'all are out of the way. Does this look familiar? It should. Because now this guy's just going to have to hit the around throw. This player's going to cut straight down, catch it. This guy's going to go straight out so that there's no picks. And that's the second break throw where you're going to gain the yardage. Now, this drill basically assumes that the only four side throws are going to be relatively flat throws. The one from the break side to the center, and the one from the center when the guy's pushing across the field, which is not a true power position. And that the yardage is going to be gained primarily through break side throws. If they fail to stop you when you're striking for power position, that's free yardage and that's power position. The reason I say that it's not truly power position when you're pushing across the field is this. If you're that player, so let's say the stack is set here, and this person just passed it to the center, and then they push across. Power position is so-called normally because your momentum is going upfield. If you're the player who's pushed across right here, your momentum is traveling in that direction, right? You're not really facing upfield. You're going to have to turn. You might even travel if you curve as you bring yourself to a stop. And so that's not truly power position. Although that's, you want to push across the field and get that. Power position is when this player throws it to him here, or when that guy just has it in general, and this player strikes. Because now this player's momentum is going, at least the majority of it is going upfield, right? And so it's an easy thing for him to translate that momentum into the disc for a free huck. Those are typically the highest percentage hucks. That's what you want. But this weave assumes that that's going to be shut down, and there are repercussions for that for the defense. If they shut that down, if they're really aggressive, making sure you don't get anything upfield, that means typically they're going to be weaker defending the break side. And so the around throws are going to be options for you. And so you'll be able to hit the first break and the second break and continue to gain yardage there. And then you'll just push it across the field with the flat throw, and then this person will strike across the field, right? Boom. Then you break it back to the middle, gain the yardage. Flat throws across the field, basically. Break it to the middle, gain the yardage. So the yardage is always getting gained on the break side. Basically, when you're working at force side, you're not gaining very much yardage. The key is not to lose yardage either, though. You don't want throws to lose more than a yard or two, and you want to gain that back immediately, if at all possible. So if you lose a yard or two on this dish to the force side, you gain it back when the person pushes across. If you lose a yard or two here, you should gain 10 to 15 on the second break throw. And that's handler movement.